The bodies of Stony Blair 13 and Stephen Berry 9 remained hidden in a deep freezer for almost 3 years after their lives were taken by the hands of their own mother, Mitchelle Blair. They call her Freezer Mom. Let's get into it. Mitchelle Blair was born on May 10, 1979 in Detroit, Michigan to teenage parents. She suffered abuse and neglect throughout her childhood. The absence of positive role models, stability, nurture, and living in a dysfunctional home shaped the adult that she became. Unfortunately, it also provides the background on the crimes that she committed that are later revealed. Mitchelle and her children lived in a low-income townhouse at the Martin Luther King Apartments on the east side of Detroit. She found herself struggling to pay rent because she had continuous problems in keeping a job, and her family had stopped helping her financially, but instead encouraged her to find stable employment so that she was securely able to support her and her children. She received $700 in food stamps, but without a job and her family was no longer able to help her financially, she was struggling trying to make ends meet. Mitchelle Blair inflicted years of violent abuse on her children, and her abuse became more severe as her children got older, and it would also depend on the mood that she was in at the time of her rage. It was nothing for her to strike her children with a belt buckle, a wood plank, or an extension cord. Her anger also resulted in her burning her children with a curling iron and punching them so hard with her fist that it resulted to them having cracked teeth. In the years of 2012 and 2013, Mitchelle takes her abuse too far. Not paying rent had caught up with Mitchelle. She had reached over $2,000 behind in her rent. On March 24th, 2015, her secret is revealed when she receives an eviction notice. She knows that her secret is over and that she can no longer hide the deaths of Stephen and Stoney. She immediately leaves the home and goes to a neighbor's house. Shortly after, a crew arrives to remove her belongings. When they knocked on the door and no one answered, they entered the residence to find that it was filthy. Food and garbage was tossed around in every room. When they attempted to remove the freezer that she had stored in her living room, they discovered that it was too heavy. When they began to empty its contents, they found that the body of a teen girl wrapped in a large plastic bag. They immediately contact law enforcement. When law enforcement arrives, they also discovered the body of a young boy underneath the body of the teen girl. Mitchelle's whereabouts are found and she is arrested. Law enforcement learns that the two children with her are 17-year-old Gabby and 8-year-old Matthew, and assumes that the bodies in the freezer were those of 9-year-old Stephen and 13-year-old Stoney. However, the bodies of Stephen and Stoney were not for sure identified until later due to the bodies taking 3 days to completely thaw. The medical examiner also determines that the bodies had been in the freezer for almost 2 to 3 years and that they both died of multiple blunt trauma. Now, the first question that came to my mind was, did anybody ever notice that the children were missing? Like their fathers, neighbors, family, or school officials? But Mitchelle was great in keeping her secret, and she also made her children keep her secret too. To ensure that they did, she pulled them out of school and told the school officials that she was going to homeschool them. Now, Detroit allows children to be homeschooled, so there was no questions asked when she called them with her decision. When family questioned of their whereabouts, she always had the excuse that they were with friends or with another family member, and she would tell the neighbors that she had sent them away to live with her aunt. As far as the fathers, well, it was easy to keep her secret from them because they were not involved. Now, there were 2 fathers, Stephen Berry and Alexander Dorsey. Berry was the father of Stephen Berry Jr. and Matthew Berry, the 2 boys, and Dorsey was the father of Stony Blair and Gabby Blair, the 2 girls. Mitchell took the life of one child for each father. There were reports that Dorsey was somewhat involved in his girl's life and brought food over many times when Mitchelle would make her oldest Gabby call him and ask for food. But when he would arrive, Gabby was made to meet him outside. And when he would questions about Stoney, she was made to tell him that she was with another family member. He also was having overnight time with the girls from time to time until he questioned Mitchelle about some bruises he noticed. She immediately stopped the girls from seeing him. Dorsey was not confrontational, so it was easy to avoid Mitchelle and her violent rage, and therefore he did nothing to fight to remain in his girls' lives. Barry was never really involved, but was aware of the abuse when he lived in the home on and off before he was sent to prison in 2010 for a felony firearm conviction. Both fathers were unemployed. Steve was living in a home with very little furniture and receiving only $195 a month in food stamps, and Dorsey was living with his mother and uncle, who were both living on disability income. He also struggled with alcohol abuse and was convicted in 2012 for DWI. Dorsey was $39,000 behind in child support, while Barry owed over $12,000 in child support. At the end of the day, everyone that was supposed to protect these children failed them. Child Protective Service had visited the home in September of 2002 and February of 2005. But Mitchell was only referred for services through Family First, CBC Counseling, Work First, or Eastwood Clinic. But it was not clear if she had taken advantage of any of those services. Meanwhile, her children remained in her custody. July 17, 2015, when she arrived at court for her hearing, Mitchelle Blair made it clear in front of the judge, Dana Hathaway, at the Wayne County Circuit Court, that she was guilty, that she was not remorseful, and classified her deceased children as demons. Her reason as to why she killed them, she claims they were sexually abusing her youngest son, Matthew, a claim that was never found to be true. In my opinion, it was just an excuse. Mitchelle was charged with 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of premeditated murder, and 1 count of torture in the deaths of Stephen and Stoney. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. When the surviving 2 children were examined by doctors at Children's Hospital, multiple evidence of abuse was present. Matthew had over 25 injuries on his back, right hip, and his right buttock. Gabby also suffered from several scars and multiple burns. A cut above her left eye, and her front tooth was chipped. Both children had old and new scars. And if that wasn't enough, Gabby, the oldest, was made to help put both of her siblings in the freezer at the time of their death. Now, keep in mind that neither Gabby nor Matthew mentioned anything about sexual abuse. I also read that Mitchelle admitted to another inmate that she had made up the entire story of the sexual abuse so that people would feel sorry for her. First, it was Stephen. Stephen was the first to be killed by the hands of his mother. Per Mitchelle, she came home one day and found Matthew, the youngest, playing with his wrestling men, she says, in a sexual manner. She repeatedly questions little Matthew on if anyone had done anything to him. She claims that Matthew stated his brother Stephen had been sexually abusing him. Blair confronts Stephen, who she claims confessed to sexually abusing his brother. He consistently denies that he hadn't done anything to his brother, but eventually says yes. Why? Because he was afraid, and he didn't know any better. Mitchell begins attacking Stephen by punching and kicking him. She then leaves the room, returning with an extension cord that she uses to wrap around Stephen's neck, put him on her back, and then lift him up with just the cord. Her punishment for Stephen doesn't end there. Over the next couple of weeks, she continued her punishment by pouring hot water on his private parts, making him drink Windex, slightly starving him, and consistently torturing him with a trash bag over his head until he dies. Stephen died on August 30, 2012. During her testimony, She states she meant to seriously harm Stephen, but she didn't mean to murder him. However, she also stated that she meant to kill Stoney and that she would do it all over again if she had to. Stoney was taken by the hands of her mother on May 25, 2013. She claimed, Mitchelle, that Stoney was also abusing Matthew and that supposedly she and Stephen would abuse him sometimes together. Again, let me make it clear, there was not any evidence of sexual abuse. Blair was mad at her family, her childhood, the children's father. She was broke, couldn't keep a job, and she took her anger out on these kids, period. She repeatedly punched Stoney on different occasions. She also burned her with hot water, hit her in the head with a board. She purposely starved her, and when she was ready, she suffocated her with a grocery bag. She made it clear that she didn't have any remorse in her testimony. Blair left me speechless hearing her testimony. I promise you that she went in much more detail than what I shared with you today. I just don't understand. She admitted she knew she was not a good mom. Then why make your kids suffer when you have other options in giving them the home that they deserve? Parents should want better for their children. We got to learn to break generational curses. Where is it going to stop? When is it going to stop? We may not knew better when we were kids, but when we become adults, we knew that those behaviors were not good. And let's not pass those behaviors to our kids. We gotta break generational curses. Mitchelle even admitted in an interview that she had choices and that she couldn't blame all her actions on her childhood because she was an adult. This case is one of the most disturbing cases that I have seen. These kids suffered years of abuse and were hidden from the outside world with no opportunity to cry for help. I believe if time had allowed, she would have taken the lives of her other remaining 2 children. The eviction notice saved their lives. Blair is serving her 2 life sentences at the Women's Hearn Valley Correctional Facility in Pittsburgh Township. Mitchelle has gained more time due to her consistent behavior while in prison. She has racked up 28 misconducts by March of 2017 from throwing urine and feces at guards from a Pringles can, choking other inmates, assaulting and spitting on inmates, and even hitting police personnel. 38 months to 5 years were added to her time for those misconducts. Matthew, now 15, and Gabby, now 23, seem to be doing well. Matthew was adopted by his great aunt and uncle. He suffers from neurological development issues, but he is thriving and attending school, which he seems to love. And Gabby was placed in an independent living program. It has also been reported that she started college. They are consistently attending therapy. Their past has drawn them to become even closer siblings. Gabby feels bad that she couldn't protect her own siblings, but she no longer must live in fear and fight to protect Matthew in the house of terror. Stoney and Stephen were properly laid to rest on April 13, 2015. Hundreds gathered to pay their respects. Mount Hope Memorial Gardens in Livonia donated plots, and they were buried side by side. It takes a village to raise a child. Again, where was the school system? Where was the community? What is the point of child protective services? Somebody should have had heard, seen, or said something. Keep Gabby and Matthew in your prayers. And remember, change starts with the person you see when you look in the mirror. Be the change.